So folks, I'm going to talk with you really, and you're going to be interactive using Mentimeter, which I'll explain, and you can do on a second tab or a second device to take part in essence, the presentation. I'd also like you to take part by putting things in the chat box. And I'll attend to that during the workshop or after as well in terms of inquiries and stuff. What I really wanted to talk to you about is this journey to hybrid working culture. And within that, the reality of, are we going to have better meetings or are we going to have worse meetings? Because you haven't worked out how to do hybrid meetings, where only half the folk are traveling to share cheese or coffee or whatever, and the other half are joining from wherever they are. All of which is entirely possible, and all of which I have now shown the world in lots and lots of ways. But the first way is here in front of your screens, this illustration, because it was actually quite hard to find images and ways that shows the reality that we're now in, where groups of people can meet with individuals as well, and that they are all in one meeting. So I've gone right to the heart of what makes businesses work, which is meetings, networks, forums, etc. My background, I said some stuff earlier, but just to add to that, in the world of being a trainer, I also provide certified and accredited training and products that allow professionals to become accredited. I'm also a very extensively boring governance expert in terms of the way I regulate governance and the way I am part of the Institute of Directors and Quakers in Business and on the board of Friends of the Earth Scotland. So as I said, we're going to interact during this workshop. I'm going to skip some of the slides as I watch the timing because there's more in here than we can necessarily cover. But I've got a clear idea about where we're putting the emphasis. The whole idea really of this bit is looking at the challenges of hybrid working patterns, which has become a 38% swing in most professions globally. So obviously not down at delivery of health and social care, such as massage or whatever, but actually a huge amount of people are now no longer going to offices on Fridays or Mondays. And we now see the global shift in office space happening as we get into 2023. But actually, what are the principles and practices that really help hybrid working patterns work well? And you'll pick up a lot during today's workshop. So I advise you to have pens at the ready and do doodling. I don't find it rude for people to do doodling. You will retain 60% more information. I will also talk about how our packages of what we're doing through Places Work are helping various case study organisations go 100% hybrid, making the best of their office space and the fact that they're mobile with the right kit and can do it all. But of course, actually, there are major reasons for why, and we're really at the early part of this curve. And actually, there are some people who are not convinced about this whole idea, and fair enough. But it will improve the accessibility to people who have long-term conditions, people who are mums, people who are stuck at home being a carer, people who just don't have petrol in the car because they can't afford it, all sorts of reasons for why actually hybrid working patterns is the only responsible choice to get with it. And then, of course, it's, well, how do we then do all the rest? But of course, what do we really mean? Well, there is a spectrum of a hybrid working meeting, and we're not doing this partnership meeting in No Ties as a hybrid meeting, of course. Nobody is having cake together, despite Denise and Rebecca meeting up for cake earlier. They haven't joined us as a group today, but they could have. And I think it's really interesting to think about where that's at when you're a trainer or a facilitator, because there really is no excuse now not to be capable of the hybrid format, except for if the venue's crap. But then there's no excuse for the venue to be crap, because why couldn't we just have the cameras and all the rest of it? And I'll speak you all through to that. It's dead easy, actually, and there's lots of free stuff on my website. in terms of videos and materials. But actually it is a bit harder. So that's why we're not jumping into it fast, because it's a culture change to watch screens, to make sure audio works, and then actually what if we're going to have to convert of my training course when I put people in rooms with flip chart? Well, go figure. It's pretty easy actually, but it takes a bit of learning and training and a bit of discipline. But that's why I'm calling out to trainers and facilitators, get over yourself. You've had all the pandemic to get ready for this. If you're not reading the runes now, get with it. But people are experiencing all sorts of issues, and this is just data that you're not going to interact with. But in a minute you are on Mentimeter, and if you were part of this workshop that dropped these dots, then you would see that actually this is where people dropped lots of dots. There's about 80 people in this workshop that dropped those dots. You are now going to go into Mentimeter. So I'll copy the link into the chat function. But actually you can get there faster than me by going to www.menti.com and putting in the number that's the top of the slide. And then that invites on your other device you into the question about, so what sort of meetings do you think are harder or easier to adapt? And of course, it's just a sliding scale I'm inviting you to do, and you'll quite quickly see in front of you what people are saying. And so I'll linger on this slide for a bit. And I don't know what your opinions are, for example, about if you were to do some sort of forum inside a community venue, do you think that's going to be easier or harder to do? And that's what you're asked to do in the sliding scale. If anybody's getting stuck, do shout out. But obviously some people are in there and have put in their votes. You can see it in front of you. And of course, in the case studies with Scottish Renewables, they called us in to make their forums of the renewable industry massively working hybrid, because of course, if you're doing wind farms, you're not going to be in Glasgow every day, because funnily enough, that isn't where most of the wind is, but it is where the headquarters of Scottish Power Renewables is, and it's also where the Scottish headquarters of the other big renewable firm in Scotland. And it is where the glass-sided building of Scottish Renewables is. And so they want to host people who are in Glasgow into their lovely building in Bath Street, but also they want to not be exclusive to the smaller industry partners who do wiring and batteries and piping and have folk with vans in Orkney and are not going to make it to Glasgow that often. But how do their staff chair an authoritative industry, cutting edge renewables, changing the world meeting that looks at how useless our UK government is about batteries when it comes to offshore wind coming onto the shore and entering the national grid? Well, go figure. I trained them in all of that. The case studies on the website. You can read the rest on Placework website. So you can see where it's coming out, and you're quite right. There are some things that are easier, some things that are harder. So you can see the data live in front of you. What's brilliant about Mentimeter is it's democratic. None of you know what Julie said, or Julia, or what Derek said, because you all put your data in anonymously, but actually we have live data. And so we have this move towards consensual decision-making, checking out where your audience actually is live rather than waiting for people to unmute, chat, put it in the chat box, etc. And we have this ability to make decisions and make meetings more efficient. And that's seminars, workshops, conferences, blah, 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 blah. So go figure. I've also written a course about how to use Mentimeter and Jamboard well if you're a trainer or a facilitator. So it's actually got a lot easier doing business and a lot more efficient. If you want to interact with this one, feel free. I'll go back to this slide, and I'll show you the results in a moment, but I'll just tell you about one more case study while we're doing this. How would you rate? I've written this slide about your organization, about hybrid working. Is it at the not really aware about all of this hybrid working stuff, got some policies involved, or actually, no, we've not only got policies, we've got training about the burnout effect of hybrid working or whatever it is. Would you say that you're now integrating hybrid working? I've twisted the next slide to say, actually, how effective do you think your network is? So, because a lot of people at Notice Network work with loads of other businesses, you might have opinions about what are you hearing about the businesses around you that you work with, your clients? How capable are they about hybrid working? Are they really integrated about it? Have they changed their offices? Have they worked out their hot desking policy? Do they have anything about the financials about all of this? Do they really know what they're doing? I mean, I can tell you the Scottish government don't, because I consult them. But anyway, you know, they'll get there. They're a large institution. They've got huge amounts of power in this. But you can see, actually, it's really interesting where people are really at and where organizations are at, because where organizations are often reflect where humans are at. Organizations are often behind the individual and ahead of other institutions, and constantly winning prizes for being slightly ahead of the other institution. But hey ho, I want change fast, so I kind of get frustrated with businesses. Just get on with it, really. But I know that institutions take a long time, which is why I regulate the Scottish government. I think this seems very real. The results from previous people, this is from hundreds of businesses from last year, is about here. And so people are getting there, actually, because I started collecting this data in 2020. I can say that with authority. I want to move into a few tips and tricks as I close towards the end of our learning, and I'll skip through quite a lot of these slides here. So I think there are some very grounded, important things about whether to convert something to the hybrid format. And actually, first off is some basic principles of, well, is that meeting really needed? And we saw during the pandemic, and we're still seeing people going back to back, one meeting to the next, without really thinking it through. Well, why? We're humans. Why are we doing that? I don't get it. I just don't get it. I get why other people do it to us and book our diaries back to back, but surely we've all got diary widgets nowadays that protect us from things, or virtual administrators that can do that. I mean, like, come on. Surely we've got a more efficient world to live for ourselves. But of course, it's all become a bit more complex. If am I going to have to travel or not to that? And how's that going to work on July the 27th? But actually, it comes very basics. And as people who are professionals, I mean, none of you look like you're in your 20s. Sorry to say that, but it's kind of true. Then actually, you know how to plan a meeting. And of course, that is actually about, well, who's going to be there and how's it going to work? And what are the ingredients? And, oh, am I ready? Have I done that? You know, where's it going? Here's another interactive one, because, of course, when we're talking about hybrid, we need to be able to hear each other. I can note that quite a few of you, like Fiona and Derek, are on mute at the moment. You don't need to be if you're in a sound privileged environment, because, you know, I might want to hear how you sneeze or what's going on for you. And actually, if you've got no interruptions expected in the background, there's no reason to be on mute right now. We can share a sound environment. But of course, actually, it is worth thinking through the audio environment that you're going to be in, because of course, audio problems are one of the frustrations in hybrid meetings. And when you end up with an audio problem, you end up with, like, you know, you could hear my banging of my phone or whatever. And for, you know, for Julie Taylor, you know, that went straight through her ears because she's wearing headphones. And of course, actually, where you put the audio kit is dead important, and how that works, but also how soundproof your environment is when the meeting's happening. And hotels aren't necessarily doing all of that auditing, but places where it does do all of that, so that we can walk into a room and quickly work out where's the audio going to be. How's that going to work? I carry the kit with me on my bike. You know, it's not difficult. But of course, the most important thing of why I'm doing all of this is nothing to do with all the things I've just said. It's about diversity and inclusion. The participation of people, getting them involved when they're remote, is different to getting them involved when they're in person. And, you know, I'm not massively jealous of the coffee that Denise and Rebecca had this morning, but I bet they had good cake. And I'm getting hungry now. So how does that play out in the meeting if we start to get jealous of what each other's eating? How does that work? And are we actually interested in what each other's eating? But we are interested as humans about each other, because humans love humans. And we are massively curious as a species. So there are some basic principles, and actually being visible to each other is dead important. So I'm going to take you through some other things. Like we've done today with Derek being our tech host, really simple, don't have just one person running it, and actually assign roles like Derek, Julie, blah, you know, we've got a variety of roles running today's session, which is why it goes smoothly. It's not difficult, it just requires each one does their bit. Simple tech is often better than complex tech, because then you'll know it works and it will be your tech and you'll carry it in your handbag. And these middle speakers, you know, literally are that size. I'm searching for where my nearest one is. Here we go. You know, carry it in your handbag. It's not difficult, and it's not actually expensive. But room layout is everything, and everybody's been around the block knows this, that you walk into a room, you've asked it to be laid out in one way, and then you reshuffle the chairs and the tables. Well, go figure. I produce layout plans and also test the audio, but then also think about how that's really going to work. And hence we've done all these films and photography and stuff. But I also do diagrams and then translate those diagrams into actual rooms with clients. Like this is a room in Meadowbank's house on London Road that is for unpaid carers. And this is unpaid carers having a training course in the same room as this, where they're doing their writers group. And we've done other diagrams for other things. So the Care for Carers organization has now gone 100% hybrid for its writers group, its sculpture group, its board, its forums, its professional engagement with the government, all from one room that we have converted with Billy bookcases. That's a Billy bookcase over there. That's a table there. I can tell you the spec about all the kit. I can also tell you the spec of the chairs and the foldability of all of it. Because place work just goes alongside organizations to help this happen, and alongside the individuals as well, who are struggling. But it actually just needs to be done well and make it credible, because we've had so many years now of things not working, like Microsoft Teams. Oh my God, he's almost sworn using the Teams word. But thank goodness No Ties Networking uses Zoom, you know. And actually, we've just got to make it work one step at a time and make it work for the humans that we're working with that day. So whatever your next steps are, just take one step, and also, you know, don't be alone on it. There's absolutely no point. But we do have, like, I've kind of got 3 levels of packages going on. And a lot of the work that I'm doing is providing capacity building. And one of the most efficient ways of doing capacity building is doing training courses that touch many different professionals in different ways all at the same time. And the training courses include that there are online, i.e. do it in your own time, versions of what we do live with different companies. And they're all tested. Some of them are now certified, so people can get qualifications, and some of them go to quite a high level of really degree level type stuff, because it's about culture change and it's about economic change. So you'll find all of that on the Place to Work website, plus the newsletter. Could someone say some of the things you might want to hear about or questions you want to voice?